Hey, what's up, everybody? We're going to look at a game today from the Bundesliga from September 17th, 2020, between Hungarian Grandmaster Richard Rapport with the white pieces and Swiss Grandmaster Noel. So the game started out as a Dutch Stonewall, the D4, D5, C4, E6 from Rapport, Knight F3, C6, Knight BD2, and now F5 here. Stonewall is a rare guest at the Grandmaster level, so I like to look at these type of games. G3, Studer plays in this real classical fashion. Many times, idea is to bring this knight on F3 to E5, and then bring the knight on D2 to F3 to back it up. Therefore, knight D7. Because now if knight e5 right away, then of course black will just trade it off. Bishop g2 and knight h6. Here's an idea you don't see too often, but the idea is real simple. One of the main ideas in classical Stonewall is the kingside attack. Usually you'll see piece development such as knight f6, followed by bishop e7 or bishop d6 castles, and then eventually the knight on f6 will go to e4, and then you'll see ideas such as rook from f8 to f6, um, and so on, attacking the white king side. Here you see an ambitious idea from black, and the idea is basically is to play the knight on h6 to f7, which supports the g5 advance. So it's very aggressive um, play by black here. Also, another benefit of this idea is that it allows the rook to stay on h8, as also after g5 moves like h5, h4 will be pursued by black. So queen c2 and then knight f7. Now notice white does not castle into this attack. b3, and then Rapport goes with this plan of g5. If he castles into this attack, this could lead to some difficulties here. Like say at the castles, g5. Put that. Oops, sorry. Get this castle. So after castle, g5. It's kind of like and let's say he went with this idea b3. You could kind of see how white is walking into like this ready-made aggressive kingside attack. Not saying that white can't fight this off, but um, this is already stepping in to a advanced attack by black. The only demerit from this position is that black doesn't really have a lot of development at this time, so therefore he's not really backing up those pawns yet. But once he gets his, for instance, moves like bishop e7 in, maybe knight f6, bishop d7 gets a little more development, then the attack will become dangerous. But it's understandable at the same time to see why white wouldn't want to castle into such an obvious onslaught. So after b3, g5, and now just e3. Again, continue bishop d6, bishop b2, and now a5. So you can see Rapport is playing on both sides of the board here. It's now h4, and there's a committal point in the game because obviously white is not going to castle over there, so he starts attacking black on that side of the board, trying to prove the pawn storm is a weakness. So g4, knight g1, and then castle. As the position on the king side has now been closed, black feels it's safe to castle over on that side of the board, and so does white. So knight e2, knight f6, and knight f4, just trying to take advantage of some of the weak points in the black position. So far, white has played good. Right, black has weaknesses on the dark squares, and white is just taking advantage of them. Queen c7, castle. So notice when it's safe, white castles. So white has played good up to this point, and black has a slightly worse position. Knight h8, and now c5 from report from Studer. The idea behind knight h8 is simply to play knight g6 and trade off the knight on f4. Bishop c7, a3, and now since the pawns are locked in the center and on the king side, notice that white has more space on the queen side um, with the pawn on c5. So therefore, right, he seeks to play a3, b4, and eventually open up things on the queen side, which is typical um, play for white in the Stonewall. All right, so black's attack on the king side has been stalled, and now black basically doesn't have too much counterplay. So black has to muster up some ideas in this position, or else he'll just be crushed on the queen side by white. So there's this idea, knight g6. White just ignores it and keeps going. b4, knight takes f4, and now e takes f4. Now in hindsight, perhaps maybe um, knight g6 could have been played, but again, to me, this plays into the into black's plan on attacking the queen on the king side. So, for example, knight takes g6, h takes g6, and let's say b4 here. White has to be wary of these moves like g5 at some point. Okay, forcing the h file open, and then eventually, of course, maybe the king moving up, the f7 or g7, and the rook's transferring to the open h file. All right, so I can understand why Studer just kept it moving with b4 and allowed this knight takes f4. So e takes f4, and now knight h5. Again, you have to remember that black is committed to this plan of attacking on the king side. So he's setting up this idea now of sacrificing on f4. Notice that the all the pawns are on the dark squares for black, and therefore um, black is going to try to orchestrate a breakthrough here. Notice the bishop's on c7, knight on h5, and with this type of pawn structure, black realizes that he can get 3 pawns for a piece. This allows black to get some chances. So rook f e1, good move, and now black goes for it. Knight takes f4, g takes f4, bishop takes f4, and now the position is quite unbalanced. Now white might be slightly better, but it might be easier for black to play. So the most important thing here is to realize that black has created some counterplay for himself. So at least he's not just getting slowly crushed on the queen side without any counterplay whatsoever. Now white has things to worry about, and I think that's the most important lesson of this game, is that even though black might be slightly worse, at least he has counterplay, right? And he has chances in the position, as opposed to just being super passive and solid, whereby white can just steadily improve his position without worrying about any counterattack from black. So here in this position, you can see the position is now open up on the king side. White has to worry about his king. He has to worry about black's advancing pawns on the king side, right? And he has to worry about the semi-open h file after queen takes h4. So we can say that black definitely has compensation for his piece here. Another thing I want to point out is notice that this position being pretty much closed, right? Although there are a few half open files, um, this position is not conducive to bishops here at all. All right, so although white has the two bishops, it's not like a big deal in this position. And same with the rooks. The rooks can't really function too good in this position. This is really a position better suited uh, for knights at this moment. But as the position becomes more and more open, perhaps the bishops will get their day. So let's see. White plays, let's move, knight c4 here. Right, so he just wants to give back the piece because again, like I said, the position is pretty much blocked and closed. So he wants to give up the piece to open up the position for his two bishops. Another idea here is knight f1, right? Just coming more on a deep, playing more defensively. All right, and bringing more pieces around the king, right? Anticipating this attack here. Notice how the knight on f1 guards the h2 square and the bishop guards the h1 square. All right, and then black has to figure out how he's going to continue this attack. Instead, knight c4 was played, and I think that this idea kind of, you know, it is a decent idea, but however, it does kind of neglect the defense of the king side by bringing the piece for over toward the queen side of the board, and you'll see. So black just ignored that and went on with this attack by playing queen takes h4, which is very risky, of course. Um, I guess the main idea here is d takes c4. So d takes c4. Then perhaps white plays a move like d5, and notice how the bishops start to open up here, and there's a bit of exploitation of the queen on e7 here, as the e pawn cannot capture. So let's say d5, c takes d5, and for example bishop d5. All right, which may be a bit, a bit unclear, but the position starts to open up, right, for the white bishops, and then you can see the black king maybe a bit drafty here, but of course I think there's chances for both sides here. I think Rapport wanted to avoid that, and so he plays queen takes h4. So I think this is a bit more risky than just taking the piece, but again, it seems like he's committed to this idea, so he just goes in for it, right? Black, after playing queen takes h4, allows, of course, white to move his piece again, and he plays knight b6. And I think Rapport has looked at it, in this manner. He figures that, hey, this knight is using time, right, to go further and further away from the queen. And after all, who cares about this rook on a8, right? The rook is out of the game, and black and white is taking time to chase after a piece on the edge of the board. Rapport now plays e5, and again, just really like provocative play here. But at least you can see that he has an idea. So after e5, white plays knight takes d5. Again, just giving up the piece. C takes d5, and then rook takes e5. So he's really, really trying to open up the position for his pieces here. However, he gets in the hot water. So after e5, um, it wasn't really necessary to take back with the knight here. He could have just simply played d takes e5. And after that, the onus is on black to prove what he has, right? There's, what he has in the position. So, for example, say bishop e6, then you can just take knight takes a8 here. Bishop h2 check, and whoops, I'm sorry, bishop h2 check. And there's really nothing that black has here except a few checks. I don't know what black does after d takes e5 here. So I think white kind of panicked a little bit. Instead he took knight takes d5, c takes d5, and then he wants to give up the exchange here. And this allows Rapport to realize his attack. So bishop h2 check, king f1, and then he snatches the exchange, of course. Bishop takes, king g7, d takes e5. So white has what he wants, but it seems that he miscalculated here. Right? So he has the two bishops. The position seems pretty much open, but he's not able to get to Rapport's king. So king e2, rook takes a3. Again, if a takes, this is good for black also. I'm sorry, if a takes b4, rook takes, bishop takes, and let's say bishop e6, right? Just giving up the piece and stopping this discovered check after e6. Bishop takes, and then the idea is queen h1 now. King e2, and then you snatch the bishop on a1, and then you have the threat of queen takes e5. So going back after king e2, Rapport just simply played rook takes a3, and bishop takes a3, b takes a3, and now queen c3, lining up the queen against the king here, but Rapport just simply plays f4, so he's not even worried about any kind of discovery check. Rook takes a3, f3 check, king e3, and this is pretty much spells the end because there's no retreat squares for the queen, for the king. So queen g5 check, king hobbles out to d3, and now there's a pin. Rook d8, queen d4, and then bishop e6, and white resign. It's always interesting, even at high level chess, how games end with the simplest tactics at the end. All of this strategy boils down to like basic tactics that we all learn, right? Like pins and skewers and forks, right at the end of the day. Interesting game. Again, like I said, it caught my attention. You don't see the Stonewall that much. I hope you like that video. Rapport is an interesting player. He's willing to take chances. I think that's why he's like a favorite. The fans. I can't say that the sacrifice was sound. It was the play, some of the play afterward that was a little suspect. That's definitely like an interesting setup there with knight h6 with this idea of f7. Of course, I would have loved to see white castle into that and see how he handled it. Definitely interesting play though. I thought white had the better of it here, but this was definitely definitely good play by black here with this sacrifice. I think white runs into problems after e5. I don't think he played this correctly. I think correct was just to simply take, and I think he would have still had the upper hand. Black cat to me has a lot to prove here, so you could look at that and come to your own conclusions. But I think at the d takes e5 that white is in the driver's seat here. So anyway, that's it for this video. I'll look at another game. Check the links below. There'll be some videos related to this particular opening, which is the Dutch defense, Stonewall variation, and I'll see you guys soon on the next video.